Hello, my name is Bussy and you're welcome to Life Stories with Bussy. Today I have a story from Hudi. She says, my name is Udi and my father is my gate man. I treat him very well. I pay his salaries as at when due. If he needed and hire you before his salary is due, I give him. I don't give him any preferential treatment. He's my staff and I don't treat him badly. People might think I am wicked. I am not. Am I unforgiving? No, I don't think so, and this is why. So she's going to tell us the story why her father is a gate man. Since I was old enough to understand things, my father used to beat my mother. I mean real beating, and would leave her injured. My mother had 5 of us and I was the first child. When I was 10, he nearly killed my mother. He actually used his machete on her and the neighbors had to get my mother out of the house with blood all over her body. Some of our neighbors reported to the police, but they said that the police said it was domestic violence and then it needed to be treated at home, so they had to send them back home for them to resolve it at home. Neighbors advised that my mother should not return back, but she did because she really did not have anywhere to go. One day, he nearly strangled her and I had to go get a wood to eat him and shouted that my mother should run for her life. That day, I received the greatest beating of my life. The next morning, as things were thrown out, and my father claimed that my mother and I planned to kill him. He showed everybody his head, where I had used a wood to eat him. He said he always knew that we were bastards and he wasn't her father. My mother pleaded with him and she said that she didn't have anywhere to go, but my father couldn't be bothered. My father warned our neighbors not to take us in. People already knew the kind of person that he was, so nobody was ready to take us in, but some of them gave my mother money. As we packed our belongings that day, it rained heavily, and my youngest sibling, who was just few months, was just wailing. We went to my mom's cousin in another village and spent some days with her. But our cousin's wife said that we were disturbing and that their house was too small for all of us because they had 6 children, so we were told to move. We later settled down in an uncompleted building for a while, and my mother was there struggling to make ends meet. We couldn't continue to go to school. There were so many things that had to stop. Eventually, we missed the session in school, and then my mom started earning some money cooking and selling food near the school. My baby sister fell ill, and though my mom did all she could, we lost my sister. It's sad. My only brother had been sickly and I was always afraid for his health. He also died. But what was painful was that a month before my brother died, my mom took my brother and I back to my father. And she begged my father that he should please help because she didn't have adequate money to take care of him. But my father said it again, that we were bastards. At this time, my father had married another woman who we found was pregnant. When we were about to leave, after begging him for a while, my father said he would only help on one condition. And the condition was that I would stay back and help his pregnant wife. My mom agreed because she was desperate for help to keep my brother alive. My mom in tears explained to me why I had to help my father's new wife. My mom knelt down for me and begged me to do everything to help Auntie Idia. That was the name of my father's new wife. My father gave my mother transport money to go back and told her that in some weeks' time, he would send me to her with some money. I stayed back with them and Auntie Idia used me as a slave. She never gave me food. I was always hungry. I reported to my father and he beat me mercilessly that I wanted to ruin his new marriage. I have a scar on my left eye till date as a result of my father's beating. Auntie Idia later had a stillbirth and my father beat me mercilessly that day for bringing bad luck to his family. He called me a witch and he told me to go. When I asked him for the money he promised to give my mother for my brother, he said he didn't have. I remember saying to him, Papa, I beg you in the name of God, Joseph might die. We need this money, Papa. Please. He said, so what if he dies? Didn't my new baby die? I was tired to be beaten and treated like a slave. I knew that once Auntie Idia came back, she would be in so much sorrow, and then I would be a scapegoat. So I ran back to my mother. A week after I got back, my brother died. With 2 children dead within the space of 5 months, my mother was left in misery. I believed what she went through was depression. She kept on pushing and trying. One day, as she went to the market to get foodstuff, I wasn't sure whether she was not conscious of her surrounding or she wasn't looking. A truck hit her. She was hospitalized for a while and there was really no money. I went back again to my father. This was like a year after I ran away. When I got there, I was told he had moved and one of the neighbors directed me to his new house. I knocked the door. And when Auntie Idia discovered I was the one, she told me to wait for my father to come back home. He came back home in his new 505 salon car. Immediately he saw me, he stopped his car and chased me out. I kept saying, Papa, Sarah died, Joseph died. Please, don't let my mother die. He said my mother was a witch killing her children and I should take my bad luck far away from him. I begged him that day on my knees crying. I begged him so much. I begged him crying and wailing. One old woman who was staying opposite the house, who didn't know what was happening, heard our altercation and she came down and she also begged my father. In fact, she knelt down for my father and told my father to please help my mother. Auntie Idia came at that time and insulted the old woman, calling the old woman a witch. My father took Auntie Idia inside and told me to get away or he will come and use his machete on me. The old woman took me to her house and fed me. I told her the story of our life and she told me her daughter who stayed in the town would help us. So she gave me her daughter's address and she tried to write a letter to her daughter and told me to take it to her. There were no mobile phones in those days. She said I should tell her daughter that Mama Fine Face sent me. She was actually a beautiful old woman. I went in search of her daughter and true to her words, her daughter was very nice to us. She took my mother to another hospital, but it was too late. My mother died. Mama's daughter, Auntie Jane, took us in as our children and sent us to school. I was 14 at this time and you couldn't tell that we were not our children. She was very good to us. She had only one child, Theophilus, who later became my husband. I only hope that we had met her before I lost my other sibling and my mother. Whenever Mama Fine Face came to visit, she would give us updates on my father. Mama Fine Face soon died and we lost touch with my father. When Theophilus and I wanted to get married, my mother-in-law wanted us to go and meet my father. We went to where he used to stay, but he had moved. No one seemed to know where he was. Over 30 years since all these things happened, my husband and I shuttle between Nigeria and UK. Our children are in school there. Recently, I came home and found my father had been employed as the gate man. He had been working there for 3 months before I came back. He was looking a former shadow of himself, of course, and he had aged a lot. Immediately, he saw me. He was startled. I gave him a cold stare. I sincerely didn't feel anything for him. I pretended as if I didn't even know he was the one when he was introduced to me. Every day, he greeted me when I have to go out and I respond back as formally as I can. The man was initially confused because he knew I was the one. One day, he summoned up courage and called me my full names. I looked back at him. I stared at him for a while, smiled, and I got into my car. I don't give him any preferential treatment. I treat him like a staff that he is. When I told my other 2 siblings, they told me to send him away. that they never want to see him. I told them he needed a job and he was being paid for it. I didn't have to make him go hungry. I don't need to revenge, but I wouldn't do extra. I think he summoned up courage to speak to my husband one day. Theophilus was shocked and asked that we help him. I told my husband that we're helping him by giving him a job. Theophilus feels I should forgive. I told him I have nothing to forgive. I don't feel anything for my father, and I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. Am I doing anything wrong here? If you were Udi, what would you do? I'll be waiting for you in the comment section. Bye. See you another time. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share.